Well, they say everything is bigger in Texas, and today we saw bigger action on the blistering fast mile-and-a-half speedway. I'm Justin with NRN, the No Bull Racing Network, and it was Stewart Haas locking out the front three positions. 1, 2, 3 they were for the first time in that organization's history, and you just knew that one of those drivers was going to be in victory lane with that cowboy hat and pistols by the end of the 500 miles. The green flag would wave in the air and Kevin Harvick would cut his teammate Kurt Busch absolutely no slack whatsoever, and he would power past him to take the lead of the race. Then on lap 3, Alex Bowman would get loose and spin, taking Paul Menard and Daytona 500 winner Austin Dillon with him. So crashed early in the race. Alex Bowman's day would be done. Race would resume, and it would be Martin Truex Jr. who would hit pit road first. That would bring the rest of the field down in the next few laps. But Denny Hamlin would stay out to inherit the lead of the race, making a little gamble there. Meanwhile, second place runner Ryan Blaney would be issued a speeding penalty for an out-of-control tire. He had been running second until that point, so that put him one lap down. Hamlin was trying to catch that caution though and trap some of those guys a lap down as well, but he would not get that caution. And after his stop, Kevin Harvick would get back to the front of the race and would be dominating as always. Martin Truex Jr. would be second after that round of pit stops, but just when his day looked to be going right, Truex would cut a right front tire down and he would slam the wall coming out of turn 4, and that would put an end to his day. With the caution coming out so close to the end of stage 1, that would wrap up stage 1, and Kevin Harvick would win the stage. And it looked like it was going to be a race much like Vegas, where Harvick won stage 1, 2, and the race. Stage 2 though, Kyle Busch would win the race off pit road, so that would give him the lead coming to the green. They were 2 seconds quicker than Harvick. Busch would take the green flag to start stage 2, but the conversation was all about tires, with the temps being so low in Texas. It was a very cold day, and the teams running low air pressures. There was concern that too much pressure was being put on that right front tire, and we were going to be seeing lots of tire issues like Truex had. That was the concern up and down pit road. Kyle Busch would open the stage in the lead, but it wouldn't take long for Kevin Harvick to run him down and make the pass. Kevin Harvick would once again resume the lead and set sail in his Ford. But like I said, tires were the topic of discussion, and this time it would be Kyle Larson who would suffer. Larson would blow a tire getting into turn 1, and he would take a very hard lick to that safer barrier in the middle of turns 1 and 2, and Larson would be D-U-N-N done. But he was able to get out of that car and walk away relatively unharmed. But man, that looked like a hard lick. It looked like it was a hard lick in slow motion, so I can't imagine what that felt like going the actual speeds they were doing, well over 200 miles per hour. And this is a bit weird, this next thing here. During that round of pit stops for that caution, a lug nut off of Kevin Harvick's car actually flew off the tire and somehow managed to get stuck in the jack next to it. And they had to fish that lug nut out of the jack before they could finish that pit stop. But that stop would cost him positions, and he would be very deep in the top 10. But in all my years of watching racing, I don't think I've ever seen that one before, where a lug nut has flown into the jack like that. But how good was Harvick? Well, we were about to find out, because he was going to have to come up through the field to get back to the lead. Up at the front for the restart, it would be both of the Busch brothers, with the older Kurt Busch in the lead. Kyle would show him some brotherly love though when the green flag came out and let Kurt pull down in front of him, and then those two would get to racing. But then really big surprise when Kevin Harvick dived to pit road, and the problem was he had a loose wheel, and that was going to put the man who had dominated stage 1 one lap down. But at the end of stage 2 was some great racing between the Busch brothers. Kurt Busch had been leading up to that point, and with 5 laps to go, he got held up by a lapped car, and that would allow Kyle Busch to slip past him and hold on for those final 4 laps to pick up the stage 2 win from his older brother Kurt Busch. Kyle Busch would win stage 2. Stage 3, entering the final bit of the race, and it would be Eric Jones, the young Eric Jones for Joe Gibbs, who would win the race off pit road. His crew did a phenomenal job all race long, and that would give him the lead of the race when they would come to the green to start stage 3. But then trouble would strike in just a few laps into the run when Denny Hamlin would spin, and he would collect Eric Almirola, Brad Keselowski, and Jimmy Johnson, who had been having a solid run up until that point. So lots of contenders would be going home with tore-up race cars. In just the first few laps of Stage 3, Denny Hamlin would take responsibility for that wreck and losing the car and getting into Eric Almirola. The attrition, though, was pretty high to this point, and had been higher than we had been used to seeing in the other races this season. With 98 laps to go, the caution would come out again for Paul Menard, and that would allow Kevin Harvick to get back on the lead lap and back in the fight. Can you believe it? Only someone like Harvick. Stuff like that could only happen to a guy like Kevin Harvick, who's just so dang good. On the restart, Kyle Busch would muscle past his Joe Gibbs teammate Eric Jones to get the lead of the race, and he'd take off trying to run down the laps, but eventually Kevin Harvick would get to second place. And for a moment, I thought, how funny would it be if Kevin Harvick could rally back from all he had gone through in this race to pass Kyle Busch and force him to finish second again after he had been leading the race, and Kevin Harvick would go on to win the race again. But it wouldn't happen like that. Kyle Busch would be able to hold on to win his first race of 2018 and his 44th career win. Second place, no more for Kyle Busch. He would win the O'Reilly Auto Parts 500 just 0.3 of a second over Kevin Harvick, who rallied from behind. Cannot believe it. What are they doing in that 4 car? But let's take a look at the top 20 finishers of the O'Reilly Auto Parts 500 from the Texas Motor Speedway. Kyle Busch would get his first win of 2018 and joins the playoff ranks, and he'd give Kevin Harvick a little taste of his own medicine. Kevin Harvick would come in second place, but man, he had the car to beat, and he dominated the first stage of the race, had trouble in the second stage, and he rallied back to finish second. Just amazing run for that team. They continued to be the guys to beat. Jamie McMurray would finish in third. He'd be the highest running Chevrolet. Really good run for Jamie McMurray. Eric Jones, who led some laps, he'd finish fourth. Ryan Blaney would finish fifth, and he was another guy that had to overcome adversity many times today. His Team Penske teammate would finish in sixth. Joey Logano, that would be. And Kurt Busch, who started on the pole, would finish seventh. Bubba Wallace Jr. with a really good run for Richard Petty. He would finish 8th, and Clint Boyer would finish 9th. And William Byron, who had to start dead last on the field after an engine change, he'd come all the way up to finish in 10th. Chase Elliott, he would finish 11th. Trevor Bayne would be 12th. Ty Dillon 13th. Michael McDowell 14th. He's got some history at Texas. You remember that really bad crash he had? If you hadn't, look it up. He would finish 14th. Chris Buescher with a really good run today. He would be 15th. And get this, Matt DiBenedetto, after starting in 30th place, DiBenedetto would finish in 16th. Great run for him. Casey Kane, he had quite the day. He and Trevor Bayne spun out, and he tore up a tire and tore up that whole right front of his car, but he would still finish in 17th place. Ross Chastain would finish in 18th. Cole Witt would finish 19th, and Greg Gaulding would finish in 20th. Man, what a day for some of those smaller teams with the attrition being so high and them being able to hang on. They really were able to have some good runs today. But it was a good race for Texas. You know, that wasn't too bad. There was plenty of action out there on the track, and that's something the mile and a halves have been missing this season. Plenty of action, and with the attrition being so high, like I said, that opened the door for some other teams to really seize the moment and have really strong runs, so that was good to see. But Kevin Harvick is still the guy to beat. I mean, to come back from all that had happened to him to almost win the race, just losing it by 0.3 of a second, is absolutely incredible. But if you put all that aside, do you know who's really dangerous? And that is Kyle Busch. And I know I've been teasing him a lot about all of his second place finishes, but get this, he's leading the points. And do you know why he's leading the points? It's consistency. Kyle Busch is always finishing in the top 5, and he's in the hunt every single weekend. And in the long run, that's what wins championships. It's 2018. Is this the year for the 18 car? Next week, we go short track racing again from Bristol, and that's like putting 40 cars in a bowl and shaking them up. So that should make for some really good racing next weekend from Bristol. But now we turn our attention to the desert of Bahrain for the second round in the Formula One Championship. Could Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari repeat and snatch another win from Mercedes? Well, they were off to a great start, having won the pole for the race, both Ferraris up front. Lewis Hamilton would have to start midfield after a grid penalty, and it was a wild first lap but Vettel and Raikkonen would get great starts, and that would be 1-2 for Ferrari in the first lap. Lap 2, though, Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen would go wheel to wheel. Verstappen would almost run over that front wing of Hamilton. In fact, I think they did make some contact. The two were being very aggressive trying to make that pass. Well, to me, it looked like Hamilton wasn't giving the young driver any room there, but the two did make contact, and that would cause a puncture to Verstappen's Red Bull. That tire would fail, and he would have a long ways to go to get back to the pits to have the new tire put on, and he was falling down the order like a rock. And while Verstappen was having tire issues, his teammate Daniel Ricciardo would suddenly have to pull off the side of the road because all the power to that car would shut off. So disastrous start for both of the Red Bulls in round 2 of the championship. Lap 5, though, saw some really good racing. Hulkenberg and Esteban Ocon were racing one another, and Lewis Hamilton came up there and passed them both in turn 1. And that would move Hamilton up to 6th, and then a few laps later, he blew by Pierre Gasly. So Hamilton, who had started 9th in the race after 8 laps of racing, would find himself in 4th. Incredible drive he was having. During the pit stops, Ferrari had elected to take the soft tire, and Bottas and the Mercedes went with the medium. That meant Bottas could actually go the rest of the distance without having to make a pit stop. Strategies looked as if Ferrari was going for flat-out pace and speed, while Mercedes was going for endurance and long runs. Which would prevail? We just have to wait and find out. Lap 26, Hamilton hadn't pitted yet, so he was the leader of the race, but he was soon caught by Vettel. He tried to hold him up as much as he could, but going down the front stretch, Vettel was in the slipstream and was able to make that pass on Hamilton and get back to the lead. Scary moment, though, on lap 36 when Raikkonen was making his pit stop. Raikkonen went to pull away and actually ran over one of his crew members. Not sure how he's doing or if he's okay. I hope he is. But to make matters worse, Raikkonen had to stop on pit road because the wheel hadn't gotten properly set on. So that would cost Raikkonen a shot at the points. Final lap of the race, though, was some great racing. Bottas was able to reel in Vettel, and with both teams being so equal in power, you just knew it was going to be a good fight, and boy was it. Bottas had a really good run on Vettel going into turn 1, but he could not make that pass, and he tried to make that pass several times in the last lap, but the Ferrari was able to hold on, and Bottas could not do it. And on Sebastian Vettel's 200th career start, Vettel would win the Bahrain Grand Prix and pick up his 2nd win of the season and 2nd win in a row, just 6/10 over Valtteri Bottas. And Ferrari's win in Australia was no fluke. And I think it's safe to say Ferrari has the power that Mercedes has. This is going to be one heck of a fight this season as we continue on. But Vettel's tires were absolutely shot by the end of that one. He put those tires on, get this, lap 18. And he ran on those tires all the way to the end of the race to lap 57. Amazing performance from Sebastian Vettel. The top 10 finishers, Sebastian Vettel in the Ferrari, he would get the win. Valtteri Bottas in the Mercedes would finish 2nd, and Lewis Hamilton, after starting 9th, he would finish 3rd. That would be the podium finishers. Pierre Gasly, check this out. He finished 4th with Toro Rosso, scoring their first points in a very long time. And that would be Gasly's first finish in the points. Great job to Pierre Gasly. What a night for him. Kevin Magnussen would get Haas their first points of the year. Nico Hulkenberg would finish 6th. Fernando Alonso and his McLaren teammate Stoffel Van Dorn would finish together in 7th and 8th. Marcus Ericsson would be 9th, and Esteban Ocon would finish 10th. That was the top 20 finishers in the Bahrain Grand Prix. Man, what a great weekend of racing that was. That was good to return to after having a week off. But that's going to do it for the recap. I'm Justin with NRN, the No Bull Racing Network. And don't forget to follow us on Facebook. Just go to Facebook and search for NRN, the No Bull Racing Network. You can also follow us on the Twitter and Instagram at No Bull Racing Net. Again, I'm Justin. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed that racing, and I will see you next week. Take it easy, everyone.